somebody editorially speaking, there's usually a young kid in every organization who says crypto, 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 crypto until everybody gives up and says, well, look at it, right? So somebody must be doing that, the FT and the Economist. And yet somebody is saying, no, it's not going to happen. Because that's super interesting, because right now that's hard because you have to go to an exchange, you have to do it, And what about banking acceptance of this? There are some players who are doing it fast and others that are still dragging their heels. I mean, we just got debanked at my asset management firm by HSBC still.
Hey guys, welcome to Everyday Finance. Raoul Pal delves into the burgeoning universe of digital assets, examining the role that Bitcoin plays in the transformation of the financial industry and the reasons why Solana went so far as to develop its own mobile phone. These strategies emphasize a bigger concept. The cryptocurrency business is no longer solely concerned with tokens. It is also concerned with developing infrastructure, increasing adoption, and preparing the path for the sector's future.
Next question is, what the fuck is going on with the Financial Times, the Economist, the New York Times? What? Why? The Financial Times is just embarrassing at this point in the anti-crypto crusade. I understand they have a stake in the old legacy world, but I mean, the vitriol over the years, since it came out, I've been collecting articles by the Financial Times about it's a Ponzi scheme. But it's up 43 million %.
No. So, first off, you should be thrilled. You should be the happiest person in the world. First off, Raoul, I consider you one of the smartest people in the ecosystem. You know I hold you in the highest regards. You know very well, as I know, that at the end of the day, the moment in the area to make the most money is when the most confusion appears.
Of
right?
course. When it's not risk. Yeah, when there's still risk.
I'm thrilled for all of those brands to continue to misrepresent the crypto space.
Yeah, front running the institutions was the easiest game in town.
Hold on. Here's why they're misrepresenting it. It's really simple. When I was in media, it's very simple for people to understand that print is a vertical, right? You're either a magazine or a newspaper or you're not. Linear television is a vertical. You're either linear television or you're not. Radio is a vertical. Terrestrial radio, you're either terrestrial radio or you're not. Digital is a horizontal. Anything that can be digitized is digitized. So you could have digital audio, you could have digital text, you could have digital video. You could also share it. You could also interact with it differently. You could target it differently. So digital as a horizontal is a much more complex sort of ecosystem than a vertical ecosystem, print or radio or television. Okay. Tokenization, which is all crypto is an extension of digitization. And so the problem is that tokenization or crypto is treated by the media as if it is a vertical when it is actually a horizontal. This is why the media constantly makes a mistake on how to report on it, right? Because what the media says is it says, there's no useful USP for crypto except for Ponzi schemes or gambling. And so they're not wrong, but they're not right either, right? They're applying a vertical application or USP to the entire ecosystem. And so instead of thinking of crypto as a vertical, what I would argue is think about crypto as a horizontal. And in that horizontal, Bitcoin is its own vertical. It is, right?
Yes, it's just like calling the internet a vertical. It's not. It's
exactly my point. So Bitcoin's its own vertical. The ETFs are their own vertical. DeFi applications are their own vertical. Stable coins are their own vertical. Meme coins are their own vertical. Guess what? Meme coins serve a purpose that are completely different than stable coins. But the way that the media likes to capture it is Bitcoin and Fartcoin, right? And that's the reality, because they're so sexy to capture, but they misrepresent the entirety of the ecosystem.
But the journalists are not stupid.
No.
So they're doing it purposefully, Keith.
I don't
not
agree
because
with that.
they're confused. I don't believe it. I do not believe.
I actually don't agree with you. I don't think that there's a deliberate. I think that there is a deliberate intent not to want to understand. Right? Like people have their blinders on, but I don't think that the Financial Times, for instance, says this new ecosystem is disrupting our old ecosystem. So we have to write negative articles. Like, I just don't think that that's happening. Just working with.
There is an editorial process, right? You know that.
Yes.
So somebody editorially speaking, there's usually a young kid in every organization who says crypto, 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 crypto until everybody gives up and says, well, look at it, right? So somebody must be doing that, the FT and the Economist. And yet somebody is saying, no, it's not going to happen.
I think that it depends on all of the institutions, right? In a lot of institutions, a lot of journalists have the freedom to write articles as they see fit. It really comes down to where it's published, how big the article is, and like what the intent of the article is. And so it's like a lot of the articles that come out that are negative about crypto, in my mind, are what I call jab articles, not full swing articles. A full swing article requires like more editorial involvement from like the top and like more editors, whereas like a lot of the jab articles are just pieces that somebody would write based on like a whim, or like their feeling to publish on a given day.
Is it the Peter Schiff approach that if I'm just negative, I get more attention? So it gives them a space to get attention in a growing space.
I find it really interesting. With the exception of the New York mayoral sort of situation, my view on public postings are always to be positive, right? Because it's really easy to garner attention on negativity. I have like very little time or patience for like people who only write negative articles. What I don't get about Peter Schiff is, he seems like a very smart guy, and I've never met him before, but the world is not black and white. Like, there's room for gold ownership and Bitcoin ownership. And so and by the way, there's room for tokenized gold ownership, Bitcoin ownership, physical gold ownership if you want.
ETF ownership. Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. Like, it's not as if you have to put all of your assets in one class. And by the way, you shouldn't be putting all of your sort of like assets in one bucket. But I think that people sometimes dig their heels in, and it's hard to undo people's perspectives. Like when I'll never forget when I took time into Web3, right? A lot of people called me up and were like, "What the heck is wrong with you?" Right? When the article came out, in Yahoo back in, I think it was like March of 2021, and when the article came out that we made as much money as we made, a lot of people changed their mind and were like, oh my God, this is a real business that you can actually launch. At the same time, it wasn't until we did Artists for Peace and we started to use crypto to start to show that it can be used for good efforts that people started to really change their tone. And, one of the things that I feel has always changed people's perspective is when you could show that the crypto community is actually providing good to the world. And is not just a financial tool or an efficiency play. And that's hard because it really is an efficiency play and a financial tool. And so I try to apply it wherever I can, which includes like my initiatives with New York Cares. And you're going to see a big one come out, in a few weeks for Stand With Students, where with everything that's going on in New York, I went to a bunch of these New York based companies. And I said to them, look, I sit on the board of New York Cares, the largest volunteer network, in the city. I oversee and chair Stand With Students, which I've done for the past 5 years, which helps the Title I schools, right? And what I'd really love to do is I'd love to show that the crypto community cares about people other than themselves and the community in crypto technologies. So I'd love for you to participate in this, right? And the overwhelming response has been incredible. Everyone from the Solana Foundation to Ripple to Dapper Labs to Exodus to, Broadlight to FalconX, and I can continue to name on and on and on, have stepped up and said, we want to participate and have donated. Right. And, Cake Wallet was another great one where it's like people you wouldn't even expect, but are building a business in New York are saying, we want to stand up to help this New York environment when there's a little chaos. And we know that New York is trying to do good for the crypto ecosystem too. I think that helps people wrap their head around crypto and starts to sort of nullify this.
I don't know.
XRP has been experiencing a protracted period of declining prices. the reduction of almost 20% over the course of the past 6 weeks. However, signs in the market indicate that a change could be on the horizon. Even though futures leverage has decreased, open interest has been reset, and on-chain data indicates accumulation. Trade has been occurring in a descending triangle, which is a pattern that frequently indicates weakness. Buyers seem to be establishing positions in the vicinity of the base, which ranges from $2.35 to $2.70, with good technical support being provided by Fibonacci zones. If this foundation remains intact, analysts are of the opinion that XRP might make an 85% return, reaching prices close to $4.80 by the end of the year.
Because that's super interesting, because right now that's hard, because you have to go to an exchange, you have to do it, And what about banking acceptance of this? There are some players who are doing it fast and others that are still dragging their heels. I mean, we just got debanked at my asset management firm by HSBC still.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So I will say this is, I wrote an op-ed about 2 months ago, and I published it on Bitcoin.com. And it was about, we've now entered into the golden age of crypto, right? And I think that's a really important sort of like segue to answer your question, if that's okay, which is, this is neither a pro-Trump or an anti-Trump comment, okay? This is just a statement of fact, which is the ecosystem is in a far better place today in America under this administration. Under the previous administration, it was vilified. There was incredible amount of lawfare. It was unfair in terms of the way in which sort of government was deployed against companies. And essentially what you had in the previous administration was you had a system that gutted the middle of the crypto ecosystem. So you either fell into the camp of you had the funds in the bank to be able to fight and defend sort of where you were, or you're essentially a new player who in the last 6 months of the administration were able to sort of step up and emerge, but you were small enough that nobody really paid attention to you at the government level. If you were a mid-level crypto player in the old administration, under the old administration, what you found was you were constantly under attack. You weren't getting sort of what you needed to be able to build and support your business. And so like the outcome of that is you have a maimed sort of like middle group, right, that has come out of this. And that maimed middle group is seeing a lot of consolidation today. And that's why you're seeing a lot of different companies acquire crypto companies today. By the way, we're in that camp too right now. We've made a lot of acquisitions, some that we've announced, some that we've not announced yet, right? And that's a really just sort of healthy evolution of this space coming out of that old administration. When you look at the new administration, and I said this publicly when Bo Hines pulled back, like here's an individual who, really walked into a job with David Sachs, and these guys didn't know what they were going to face. And they said, we're going to start to help steer and hold people's hands. And they did a phenomenal job. They've done a phenomenal job to date. Like there's no denying it. And what you're beginning to see for the first time ever is clarity in the crypto space. And this answers your question. This is the most long-winded answer ever.
No, it's important because it's going to lead into more stuff.
But it's super important for people to realize. Clarity usually happens in like one small specific area, right? But crypto's undergoing clarity in 4 areas right now at the exact same time. It's seeing regulatory clarity. It's seeing legislative clarity. It's seeing banking clarity, which goes to your question, and it's seeing accounting clarity. And what I mean by that is look at what's happening. For the first time ever, the SEC and the CFTC are all sort of really beginning to launch these crypto sprints, start to give definitions of what things mean, start to work together collectively to ensure that people at least know what they're building towards, right? When you get into the legislative camp, right, the U.S. passed the first ever legislation in the crypto space with the DeFi broker rule being repealed, right? It passed its first real serious crypto, I would say positive step forward with the Genius Act. It's currently debating and discussing market structure surrounding sort of the DeFi ecosystem. This is unbelievable, right? Then you get to banking. And here's a really fascinating one. Like I sat down with a big bank the other day, and I said to the individual, I'm still laughing to this day as to the fact that we could now talk to each other. Like there was a point that they wouldn't return my calls. Now you have to remember, when I was at Time, some of the biggest banks were some of our biggest partners. When I was at Bloomberg, I worked with all of them very closely. So I know all these folks. And for a while, like I was sort of like a leper on the leper colony, right? Like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's true. I knew I could make you laugh with that, Raoul. That's going to be the clip, right? That's my hamburger clip.
Leper colony.
Leper. I was a leper, right? Like that's how I felt in the first, 2 years of building, right? Because we were building against such headwinds. But the big banks now, for the first time ever, are engaging, and they've repealed in the United States a lot of like the rules for the big banks to be able to participate in this evolution, right? And ultimately, like we're seeing a tremendous amount of support. I mean, I can say publicly that Citigroup, Bank of America, JPM have all been unbelievable in the past, I would say 3, 4, or 5 months in terms of sitting down with us and having constructive conversations, real conversations. This is not saying that they're like saying, oh, we'll do anything, but like for the first time ever, we can have real conversations with them. And that is unbelievably appreciated, right? And then you get to accounting, which is businesses just need to know how they can account for holding crypto assets on their books. And you're seeing that with the FASB rule changes. And so like when you think about it, like, why does this matter? Clarity ultimately creates stability. Right? Crypto's been an ecosystem that's grown for 15 years with no clarity in the gray. It now is getting clarity. It's getting stability. And with stability, it gets capital inflows. And then when it starts to get capital inflows, more innovation comes out of it. And then more adoption comes from it. And more problems can be solved. Right. And so like, I honestly don't know, to be honest, if we could have been able to roll out virtual accounts a year and a half ago. I don't think that the ecosystem would have supported it. I don't think that the environment would have supported it. But today, what you're seeing is you're seeing the US go from a laggard in this space to leading this evolution. And that is, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, testament to the administration.
Binance is currently displaying a unique indicator. The ratio of Bitcoin to stablecoin reserves has reached parity at 1, a number that has been associated with significant turning times in the past. In cycles from previous years, this has corresponded to both bottoms and spectacular rallies. One example is the increase from $78,000 to new highs of $123,000. Liquidity remains plentiful now that BTC is close to $110,000. But there is a possibility of falling below the $95,000 threshold and dropping below the 50-week moving average, which is previously defined bear phases. The question of whether or not this signal indicates the beginning of another rally or a deeper correction is dependent on Bitcoin's ability to maintain critical support levels over the coming weeks,